Welcome to the Daily BA. My name is Ryan O. We're on an Ask Me Anything 3-parter. This is the final one, so if you're into it, watch. If not, I'll see you tomorrow with some regular scheduled content. Let's just roll the intro.
Hey, bro, don't you look at that? I said, my friend, what you looking at? I think she is something for me. Excuse me, miss, it's my first time here.
All right, so the first question that we have is how do you avoid burnout? And this came from Brew Brit. I hit this now and then. I talked about this a couple weeks ago on this channel where I was preparing for our conference in Seattle. It's called Convergence 2018. And in order to make money to keep perpetuating things like this channel, because it is nowhere near sustainable, I work in other areas. One of the areas is doing videos locally for different organizations that are totally outside of our industry. So I had deadlines of finishing those, partially because I need money to be able to continue on and move this vision forward, pay bills and such. So it was a week where I had about 40 hours of that. We had about 40 hours of finishing our planning, and then I had this channel on top of that. So after, I don't know, it was about 10 or 12 or 14 straight days of working like 16 to 20 hour days. I went out, I finished all my stuff and my commitments. I went out, it was like July 3rd. I was trying to enjoy the 4th of July before I had to take off to the conference. And I had about 20 hours, so I went out and just was hanging out with some family friends, and I could not sleep. I had been up for like 26 or 28 straight hours, and anxiety was just like and verbal behavior going on all over the place about it. And it was one of those things where it was a little bit loud. I was exhausted, but I was just so wired and awake still that I would notice all these sounds going on around me and I couldn't fall asleep. I'd just kind of perseverate on those more and more and more. And I smile because like I understand why these things happen. Sometimes I just can't quite battle them, and it took somebody helping me for about an hour and a half to just chill out, to be able to finally fall asleep. So I hate these things. They're very real. I think one of the biggest things is even on days where I'm like really working hard, so 16 hours work, I still program in an hour a day where I just sit and I have a break and I think. It'll be right here on the floor of the studio, and sometimes I'm kind of stretching, rolling my back out, something like that. I may be on my phone watching videos, but I'm consuming, thinking, just whatever I want to do for that hour. So I always plan that in. Now proactively, I also try to go to the gym in the mornings as much as I can. This is an ebb and flow. It depends on what's going on. I'm more active at certain times of the year, depending on commitments and such. But that is also a very good proactive thing for me to make sure I'm avoiding burnout. Now, I think you can also plan for some off time as well. So one thing that I try to do is every 3 to 4 months, I have a big chunk of time that I take off. So I knew that I was gonna be working extremely hard from the beginning first 7 months, all the way up to our event. So I made sure to take some time off after that. I just happened to piggyback 2 different family vacation and a personal vacation as well. And I was largely off of like typical work schedule for about 5 weeks. That was the longest I've ever taken off in that sort of way, and I was still uploading to the channel now and then and kind of keeping consistent with that as much as I could, but it was nowhere near the normal workload, and I was able to put things down and enjoy family time and things like that as well. So I think it's very crucial to find your own kind of breaking points. Mine change. I don't always find them at the perfect time. Obviously, I could have used one way before that event like I was just talking about, but you live and you learn. So the last piece of advice here is take some data around this. Identify when it is that you're starting to have more of those private events, like those negative thoughts, right? Like you can track those sort of things. You can put them on a chart. You can look at them. Figure out what your triggers are and who your support network is, and dive into that more and more and more. An hour a week or 2 hours a week will give you a lot of introspection based off that data that you can use to plan moving forward. All right, the Real Behavior Man asks, if you could eat just one food forever without it making you fat, what would it be? Burritos. Hands down burritos. Breakfast burritos, Chipotle, Qdoba, just straight up good Mexican style, Cali style, whatever it is, homemade. I will make them, I will eat them. Always burritos. Always. All right. Michael Fuchs was asking MJ Fuchs 21, what is the coolest project you've gotten to work on? I've got a few different ways I'm break this down. Experimental was the fish lab. So we were able to look at basic schedules of reinforcement with fish at Florida Tech when I was working there underneath Josh Pritchard and with some other people in that lab as well. Super cool. Consider getting a fish in an R2 fish school kit. I'll link one down below. Applied was starting up a school in Florida, so I worked with a couple other colleagues in starting up a place called Lodestone Academy. I played a part in that, not the entirety of it. It's still continuing, and it's, to my knowledge, still striving and doing great. It was a stepping stone in my career. It was fantastic. It is crazy when you're thinking about, I want to start something and you have absolutely nothing done, from like getting the paperwork done to having like a school that's fueled off of behavior analysis that's completely designed and moving forward and hitting educational outcomes and stable and financially secure and all those sort of things. So I learned a lot during that. I had a piece in the puzzle. I was a piece of that starting up, and I learned a ton from it. All right, and then entrepreneurial in nature, so things that I've had to kind of create and value would be this actual channel. This has been a fantastic, just like bumpy ride of understanding how to start a YouTube channel in 2018. Is not easy, not hard. It kind of is, it depends on what you're looking at. Like, we have a lot more accessibility on certain things. Like, it's easier to have a social network and stuff, I think, nowadays than it was earlier. But earlier it was easier to kind of get bigger, is what a lot of people talked about. But the point is it's been really fun. It's been a wild ride. There's a lot of data to sort out and things. Sometimes I get hit up in the comments. I'm like, how am I looking at it? How am I sorting it out? There's just so much all the time. I could always be looking at it. Extremely fun, and it's been a challenge. I'm thinking constantly about just pictures, images, like how can we pair those up with behavior analysis, how to move this forward. Sometimes I wake up thinking, like, is this even something I should be doing as a behavior analyst, and like completely doubt myself, because it's like, why? I don't know. But you know what, it's a fun, wild ride. At the worst case scenario, like I've said, I'll know how to make some really dope home videos. I think there's a lot of value that will be seen over this in the future. I really like the idea of some more documentary style things. They're extremely expensive, and it's hard convincing an industry where they don't see the value in this, even though we did that years ago. We've done this, like, there's folks that have done this for the longest time in our field. But we, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but we just got off that track apparently. So I derailed a little bit, but this has been the most fun entrepreneurial sort of thing that I've done, is like, how can you literally get a studio and start recording and know how to do it from start to stop? Like, it's almost all been me completely. Now I get feedback loops and help here and there in some areas, but I've done 90% of the work, or maybe more. I do all the editing, all the filming, all the like distribution of the stuff, the ordering, the accounting. Like, it's nuts, it's fun, but it's been a wild ride. Namlani3 asks, for somebody that is wanting to learn more, where should I start? So it's kind of a hard question to answer. There's no real empirical support for how to do this, so I can't really speak as a true behavior analyst on answering this question, but I can give you some tips and tricks that other mentors have provided me and that I've seen often in the field. So one is, find something that's going to be immediately useful for you. Most of our material is written, 99% of our material is written, so you're gonna have to read a lot. And that's just the way it is until we get more and more creative in those areas. A lot of the good old books are also only written, and that's why there's libraries, and that's why there's libraries and libraries of information, and this is the only place you can usually get it. This is the only way you can usually get that information, unfortunately. All the really good ones, that is. So find something that can be immediately useful for you, but find something that can also be, that someone's suggesting like you should read and understand. This is usually the more conceptual and philosophical sort of stuff. So if I were to give an example, I'd pull something like this book right here, Verbal Behavior Analysis by Greer and Ross. And this is something I could use most likely because I'm going to be working with children without disabilities, likely in a setting like that. And I can literally, it tells you what we know off of all the research. It needs to be updated, but they tell you like, here's how you work with someone and start inducing real generative language. Now another one you could take is like the Dynamics of Behavior Development by Guo. Something like this, or Learning RFT, or the Relational Frame Theory book, Designing Teaching Strategies. Most of these down here. What I would do is I would read a chapter of this and then I'd follow it up with a chapter of this. And I would do that daily because you're going to slowly get through this one, but you're going to have something immediately valuable, something to use tomorrow when you're looking at that applied work and you have the right applied book. I'll off a few more. When it comes to measurement, the Precision Teaching book. When it comes to research methods, Marie Stidman's Tactics of Scientific Research. Fantastic old book. Totally got lost. Everyone should read it. For conceptual stuff, Israel Gold Diamond's Blue Books. I think he wrote them also with Thompson. I always forget to say that. When it comes to philosophy, anything from the Context Press series, I have a video just on that. Go check that out. The Act 1999 book and the Relational Frame Theory book are both fantastic. I would check those out at some point. All right, so I just listed like $1,000 of books potentially. So you're like, oh man, what are we gonna do? Look at it as one step at a time, all right? It's just like anything else. You're gonna buy that $15 book, you're gonna borrow a book from somebody else, you're gonna read it. Go one step at a time. And from there, it's going to take a long time in the grand scheme, but each day you can learn something very valuable and very big. And that's what I've largely done with the majority of my books. So in no way have I read all of these, but that's the best I've got for you. I totally forgot, a wise man once told me to restate or rewrite out the chapter after you've read it in your own words. So that's something that I used to do extensively the first like couple years. I don't do it as much. When I don't remember as much as I should. So consider doing that as well. It's a lot of extra work, but you'll find yourself reaping some really cool benefits when you can remember really specific things sometimes. All right, our last question is Talking Wing Consulting asking, what is the biggest thing that you took away? What's the most valuable thing that you learned from Convergence? So this was a conference that we put on. I'll link it down below. We'll be doing it again in Seattle next year. And I'd say two answers to that. The first one would be Joe Lang was talking about the possibilities of technology, specifically artificial intelligence, where that can go. The fact that we live in a world where right now somebody is, I got two examples for you specifically for this. Somebody can wake up and have a significant partner in their life that is a hologram version, that is not an actual person, but just a programmed AI hologram person. Is absolutely just mind-blowing. That is happening. Those are on the market. You can literally have a significant other that texts you, reminds you of things, and engages with you like a loved one would. And they are in the digital world and programmed. Now the other side is that there's also therapy companies, not specifically in behavior analysis, but therapy companies out there that have deployed AI and are making changes as drastic as 40% of their staff are now AI as opposed to actual therapy staff. Like they're making procedures, they're making steps to make those sort of things happen because people are getting the same or better outcomes and they're enjoying it more. So if we're not afraid for our jobs in the grand scheme of things, we probably should. It's not coming quick, but like this world is here and that's scary. Now, the last thing I'd say for Convergence is the idea of it and then it actually happening. That was fantastic to watch them see. I had been part of a planning committee only one other time, which was I think the 2013 ABI Second Educational Conference. And I saw a little bit, not a whole lot of what goes on beyond those planning sessions. And just for a little context, like Joan and I helped pull this thing together with as well as Gina, with a fantastic team of volunteers and such. But Joan and I talked about this for about 6 months. It came down to the day before. I was up there. We're supposed to be live in 24 hours, 300 people, 200 person, 100 online. All these logistics coming together, and Joan has some passport issues. We don't even know if she's gonna be able to come in at all and to the country because she lives up in Canada, which she made it in, but we met at 7:38 the morning of the event starting at 8. And so pulling that off just logistically with everybody coming together, and we were only ever 4 minutes behind schedule for the whole 2 days, is just, it's very hard to do. And it's because of a lot of good people coming together, the right skill sets meshing, the right deferral of like who should be doing what. And yeah, I'm amazed. I hope we can maintain that for the next one. Now I know what we'll be doing is more community building, more audio, video sort of tech, and just making that wow factor even more there. So expect that. It's gonna be awesome. This is the last, I promised, installment of this for a long time. It's different, but it needs to get out here on this channel so I can also link it in other places so people can get to know me, I think, a little bit better. And there is a lot of fantastic content coming up when it comes to like how to conference, the things that I got from in the different interviews in Norway and Egypt. Those will all be coming out on this channel this year. Just a lot to organize those. So dropping some of these in. I will see you tomorrow with your regularly scheduled content. That's your Daily BA. All right. What if I told you that everything that you knew about behavior was wrong? Or at least in the ways in which you were measuring it. So that mentor, those books, those journals, that's the entirety of Java back there. All of it just a little off. Today on the Daily BA, this is exactly what we're going to talk about. So